Hey guys, Artistic or Autistic here, recording this in the wee hours of the morning because I spend most of the daytime on sleeping and or working. So, the newest next-gen game consoles in development have, suffice to say, been wrapped in more layers of secrecy than Nolan used for Batman Begins, but it's safe to say it'll be a masterpiece of technology with graphics that will amaze us, astound us, yada 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 yada. But the question is, do we really need it? In fact, the more I think about it, the more I think some brand new graphical powerhouse would do more harm than good. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why do I keep watching these videos? Well, if you had been thinking, how could better graphics be bad, prepare to be enlightened. First of all, and this might just be me, it seems that the nicer graphics get nowadays, the less our brain seems able to just fill in the blank spots, compensating for older and poorer graphics with our imaginations. Case in point, I recently took a stab playing City of Heroes again, a superhero-themed MMO that predates Champions Online, DC Universe Online, etc., etc. Now, I had played this game several years ago, back in the earlier days, and I consider the graphics to actually be pretty good, certainly enough to immerse myself in the experience. On trying it yesterday, however, I just could not get past how dated everything looked. This was a game that seemed far older and less attractive than the City of Heroes I remembered. This wasn't the only case either, as several PlayStation 2 titles I've played in the past year have struck me as significantly bumpier in appearance than I remember. And this isn't even counting the original PlayStation titles with their minimal draw distance, downright rectangular character models, and a color scheme best suited for a child's paint set. Now, obviously the game didn't get mysteriously uglier over the years. On the contrary, a few of the titles were new HD editions they make to cash in on your nostalgia. So those ones were actually supposed to be better than the versions from my childhood. Now, I can only assume that at some point I lost a great deal of the tolerance or imagination that let me simply smooth over the rust spots in my mind. And why not? Back then, this was the top-of-the-line quality, and we didn't really know anything better. Or let me put it this way. If any of you have ever played Final Fantasy VIII or games of that sort, do you remember those really pretty animated videos that were randomly scattered about throughout the game? The ones with, dramatic music, fight scenes, flower petals flying everywhere. Now, did you ever get the sense, in the moments immediately following watching one of the longer cutscenes, that the actual character model in the game looked kind of crappy? What would happen if you were subjected to months, years of such pretty videos with hardly a break in between for simpler displays? That's exactly what next-gen graphics gave us, a vastly superior feast for the senses, which left us with a hunger that plainer fare could not satisfy. Now, by contrast, I remember the very first time I played a next-gen title, which was BioShock. Now, for someone who had gone from a PlayStation 2 lineup to this, it was breathtaking, for a couple of months. But the polished, shiny titles continued to pile up, and soon the luster of such graphics just faded, becoming the norm. Now, graphics continue to improve, but in smaller jumps, never really recapturing that moment of sheer awe. And now when I go back and play BioShock, I still find it very pretty to look at, but I can see that it's starting to show its age. So, is this what we've come to? Impressed and amazed for a few weeks at the expense of our ability to let our imaginations fill in what few rough patches remain? Now yes, not all is lost, you might say, as many of us still enjoy older games. Unfortunately, the issue isn't just what prettier graphics might or might not make us lose. It's also about what it costs the game itself. Now, we've seen games getting more and more attractive, yes, but on average, doesn't it seem that games are getting steadily shorter? Now, I'm polishing off entire titles in less than a day, and it seems that pure gameplay is swiftly being replaced by DLC and, of course, collectibles and achievements meant to keep you playing long after the game is technically beaten. Speaking of long, it seems it's been going on for a while now, and we're only about halfway through. So for a brief intermission, Basket Cat! Alright, good? Good. Let's keep going. Now, this growing attraction to sparkly objects among developers may well be the reason games have been getting shorter. Think about it. The top-notch game engine, level designs, graphical quality, that takes up time, money, and most importantly, disk space. Now, the more you devote to making individual grass blades blow in the wind, or giving your protagonist dynamic and realistic beard stubble, the less you have for, enemy types, game level size, even character animation, which can lead to limited movesets or seemingly bulky movements. Now, games seem to be getting smaller, relatively speaking, with each passing year or two. Even Skyrim, which is a massive game, all considered, is smaller in terms of size than one of its predecessors in the series, Morrowind, which in turn is even smaller than its predecessors. Now the kicker is that all that's been sacrificed for uber graphics might well have come to naught, because, well, let's face it, impressive graphics really aren't that impressive anymore. This could be evidenced by the rising popularity of simpler, cheaper indie titles, and the fact that you're less likely to hear a game developer or reviewer wax poetic about how pretty this particular title looks, even if it does look very nice. As for indie titles, take a look at Minecraft. I mean, in conventional next-gen graphic nut terms, the game looks absolutely terrible, with textures that are literally blocky. Yet I am ridiculously addicted to this game, all the more so because I can't seem to get it running on my smegging laptop, and I'm reduced to staring puppy dog-eyed at my roommate until he relents and lets me inside his computer. So, this is a game with poor graphics, yet it's still incredibly fun to play, and because it's not full of graphical bells and whistles, there's room for more content. The world map is absolutely massive, populated with monsters and villages and secret caves and fortresses, just the sort of thing for the adventuring fan to sink his teeth into. A Skyrim level of freedom, only 100 times bigger, and 100 times uglier. But I don't really care about it being ugly. Frankly, I don't even notice after a while, and that's something I had almost feared next-gen games had taken from me. And then there's Slender, a tiny game, 52 megabytes in size, with only average environmental graphics and a downright poor-looking antagonist. And yet this game terrifies me on a regular basis because of an effective use of atmosphere and tension. Gorgeous games, though fun to play at the moment, lose a lot of their luster after a relatively short time. Many only have staying power nowadays because of multiplayer, and let's face it, that speaks less for the qualities of a game and more for the fact that we're all ridiculously competitive. Games nowadays also seem more easily overtaken and replaced by their newest sequels. Once you have Assassin's Creed 3, you're a lot less likely to ever bother with Assassin's Creed 2. But what about the days when Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, even Link's Adventure? We play these games regardless of whether or not we own the newest versions. Titles like these were best defined by having pros and cons, features that set them apart from each other. Most game sequels nowadays just take everything that was in a previous title and add a new weapon or costume, so why bother backtracking? Which brings us to the problem with this graphics-loving trend. Now, so many of the frontline games out there rely rather heavily on their graphical prowess and ability to wow us with set pieces and big explosions. Cherished games in their heyday, perhaps, but so many of them lacking truly distinctive stories and qualities that would let them stand the test of time. Now, I still play Dragon Warrior Monsters 2 for the Game Boy Color, and have probably sunk in far more hours into this handheld title than I have spent on almost any other 3 beautiful next-gen games combined, excluding Skyrim, of course. Games back in the day looked like absolute crap, and had AI so simple that most high school computer classes could cover them in a couple of weeks. But that just drove developers to break new ground, try new things. Physics engines, for example, did provide a tangible and honestly impressive benefit to Half-Life 2. Though, granted, it's since turned into a bit of a Me Too bandwagon for virtually every other developer since. Are the days of true innovation and expansive artificial worlds to be irreparably replaced with shallow, shiny game engine showcase models? Will big developers eventually crumble, overtaken and conquered by the smaller indie groups that show the flexibility and ingenuity needed to rise to the top? Or will the status quo just continue, leaving us with glimmering eyes but somewhat unsatisfied appetites? Look, let me just finish by saying that even though I might complain and rant about this, I'm going to be a hypocrite, because once I've sold my kidneys to afford it, I'll still probably buy this new system, and no doubt will love it, for the first month or two at least. So, per the usual, feel free to sound off in the comments, any opinions you might have. I'm going to keep doing this for as long as it takes for me to get bored of it, so feel free to subscribe if you want to keep track of my videos, and I'll see you next time.